Hello, this is a Bechstein Model 5A grand piano, 2 meters long, and it's a Sharaton style cabinet work. This was common for this is 1904 approximately, and quite a common style for Bechsteins. This was a furniture style that was popular in those days. Just looking at the casework, we can see it's a rosewood piano. It has faded on this side. Rosewood does polish up beautifully. The main issue we have with polishing is that we don't have enough French polishers, so if you would like to study French polishing, that would be a wonderful trade. There's a great demand for it. So looking at the casework though, it's in reasonable condition. So in this case, it's not really crying out to be French polished. You can see the top of it. It's beautiful. When it is French polished, it brings out the grain more contrast in the grain. There's a line here. I don't think that's a fade line. That's actually dirt, I think, rather than fading, because this has been kept down and it fades on this side and not that side, as we often mentioned. So generally speaking, the case is in good condition, and you obviously can repolish it if you want us to, if we have the time, and that's the issue at the moment, unfortunately. So wonderful casework. Sharaton is one of the styles of Bechstein of that age. This is a more typical Bechstein style that goes much older than this as well. So turned tapered legs, that's typical of the older ones. This is the same sort of age. That's a typical desk of this style, and the pedals are over there, as you can see. I haven't actually put them on the piano. So this is a black one, as you can see, but rosewood is quite common for this style as well. So Model B. So the one we're assessing for the client is a Model 5A, and which is an interim one. It's about 1902, I think, probably about 1901 to 1904-5. And Model B, this became a Model B, that was more standard. So this is just for a short period of time. And it's an excellent piano. They do restore extremely well. You can see the restoration is generally well done. There's no sign of moth in the piano, as far as I can see. Moth is such an enemy, and we've had so many cases of having to restore pianos for clients that had a loss of moth and moth damage. So fortunately this doesn't seem to have been affected at all. However, there is a major issue, as the client pointed out. There's a very cracked rest plank here. Now, those cracks are often superficial, but in this case the tuning pins are getting loose, unfortunately, so they really can't be retuned, and you could put larger pins in, you would think, but in fact you can't, because these are absolute maximum size pins. This is a standard medium star lever, and it only just fits on this size. And you very often find that if the piano's restrung with oversized pins, then the bottom base is absolute maximum size, so you really can't do anything about that. You'd have to replace the rest plank, unfortunately. So that's obviously a big job, and it means de-stringing the piano, taking the frame out. Well, to get at the rest plank, you have to take everything apart, really. So that's unfortunate, because otherwise the piano is playable. Let's listen to the tone of it. So that's an arpeggio C, and such a beautiful tone Bechsteins have. Let's compare it with the other Bechstein. So they're both equally good pianos. So this is the Model B, the other Bechstein. You can see it's not in good condition cosmetically, but does play really well. And the top treble, the key tops are excellent ivories, but you can see they're dirty, and that's because they're not shiny. If they're not shiny, they tend to attract dirt, so we usually always buff them on the buffing wheel when they're like that. So obviously that's something we can do. And generally the action's in good condition. You can see the hammers have been replaced, and also the rollers here. So they're the two main jobs to do. We replace hammers, shanks and rollers. That's the whole thing here, so that we get the hinges exactly the same as each other. But obviously we can check these. I think the hinges are generally good. Sometimes they go a bit loose, but they don't seem to have done, because it doesn't seem to have been played since it was restored. You can see minimal play there, perhaps just for a year or so. But these are good hammers. They're slightly on the heavy side, but they're good hammers. They're actually resting on the rail, as you can see there. They shouldn't be resting on the rail. And I've just regulated also the springs. We'll have a look at the end one here. You see that that one there, if I lift my finger off the key very gently, it should go up, and Riddle see I've regulated here, so as I lift my finger off the key it goes upwards, and that's correct. That means the spring, this is the spring is underneath here, and this is the adjustment for the spring, and that really does need to be so that the hammers lift, especially if you're going to lower this hammer rail, because the hammers are at the right distance from the strings, about 47 millimeters, so you're going to have to lower the hammer rail a little bit, and then they won't sit on the rail, but then the spring needs to operate properly, otherwise they may not repeat. This is a Bechstein tied action, as they usually are. Model A, which came out in about 1902, doesn't have the tied action. It has a typical modern piano action which you get in all pianos, but Bechstein, older Bechsteins have this tied, meaning that the key is tied to the top, which is a nuisance when you're trying to regulate it, and you have these rockers as well. Again, works perfectly well, and no reason to change it, though we often do change it when we fully restore a piano because it's easier for the technician to work on. This is a Bluthner 1930s grand, and it has a typical action where the keys are separate from the top, so you can take the top off, and that's much more convenient for working on. It has capstans. So when the piano is taken apart, if there are slight cracks in the soundboard, they're not really affecting the tone, but it's cosmetic more than anything. They are shimmed, and then the whole soundboard's refinished. So and also the decal on this one's missing. That's the badge on the soundboard, which was there originally. It's been taken off, so we'll try and find the right decal for the piano when we restore it. One of the major items that needs regulating on this piano is that the dampers are lifting off too early. If you press the key down, the hammer should get about halfway to the string before the damper lifts. And if you look here, it's lifting almost immediately. So in the case of some of them, like that one, it's causing the damper not to work properly. To the pedal, they're almost perfect, but to the key, they're too early generally. So the main work, or essential work that needs doing, is replacing the wrest plank, because the wrest plank split and it's oversized tuning pins, so there's no way around that one really, as I've tried to show. So other work that needs doing, it's a little bit on the heavy side. It's 64, 63 here, should be more like 50, up to 55 maximum really, so that needs to be reduced, and then slightly heavier in the bass, slightly lighter in the treble is normal for new pianos, so we try and make it as much like a new piano as possible. Just a small job there, I've got replacing the name-board felt. When the piano was restored there was no name-board felt, that's the felt at the back of the key here. Here's a Bluthner grand piano that has got a name-board felt at the back of the key. So that's a Bechstein Sheraton style Model 5A, which was a period, I think about 1900 to 1905 that they made this Model 5A. Before that it was the Model 5, and then it was a Model B, so this is kind of an interim model, and just has a beautiful tone. And it's a shame that it has to be redone, but there's no way around that. I've retuned some of the very out of tune notes so I could play it, because there are some that were going quite out of tune because of the split. Because they're oversized pins already, there's no way around this one, especially in the bottom bass where they're really large tuning pins. So you've got to replace the wrest plank, means taking the whole piano apart. Something that's quite regularly done, especially on older Bechsteins, the older model upright Bechsteins, pre-1902. Grand Bechsteins don't always need that doing, but if they've got oversized pins, then definitely you'll need to do that. So if you're interested in having a piano restored, please do write to info@robertspianos.com. Thank you very much for listening.